Welcome, I'm Solo, and this is ZN Gaming. In this video, I'll be going over how to set up follower alerts in StreamerBot. Before I waste any more time, let's jump into it. Now, if you haven't used StreamerBot before, I suggest checking out my Getting Started video. That being said, it's not as scary as it looks. Everything that we're going to be doing is going to be done in the Actions tab. And in here, we're going to make a nice little follower event. So when someone follows, it will show their name, thank them, and show their profile picture, and play a sound for a little bit of a bonus. And I will also show at the end of how to get a subscriber alert almost identical. But this is pretty easy to set up. To get started, all we're going to need to do is right click and click add. Anywhere's in the Actions tab, just click the white box here in Actions and just click Add. We'll open up the Add Actions. Now in here, we're just going to call it Follower Alert. Once you name it, you can select a group. For me, I'm actually going to put them in the events because I made the events. If you don't have a group, all you need to do is just type in here. You can type anything you want in here, and that'll just make it whatever group you want. But for me, I'm going to add it to the events group as that's where I want to have all of my alerts. But you can set them up any way you want, and they don't need to be in a group. After that, just click OK. Now on the right, we're going to have triggers and sub actions. These won't have anything in it because this here is a fresh start. So this is going to be brand new. There's going to be absolutely nothing at all in here. The first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to add a trigger. You don't have to do this here first, but it is going to be the easiest step. And it's exactly what it sounds like. A trigger is a trigger. This is going to be the thing that triggers the command or the thing that initially makes the event happen. So in here, we're just going to give a right click. After you right click triggers, just go down to Twitch, and followers already does have a triggers event. So all we're going to need to do is go down here to channel and click follow. Now when somebody follows, it will be the trigger. When somebody follows, it's going to trigger the command, and this here trigger is going to trigger the things that we add to the sub action. So now we get to add things to the sub actions, which is actually what the trigger is going to do. So this is going to be like add text, change things, move things around, whatever it is that you want to do is all going to happen in the sub actions. So this here trigger, the follow, is going to trigger everything that's in the sub actions. No pun intended. Now in the sub actions, there is going to be one thing that we do need to have. The rest can pretty much be anything you want, but there is one thing that you actually need to have. And the thing that we need to have is we need to add the follower info to this event. So we can do this here by giving a right click, going down to Twitch, going all the way down to users and get user info. Now this is just going to make sure that the rest of the actions have all of the user info. So whoever triggers the command, which is the person that follows, we need to go to user and just click OK. This is just going to make sure that it's going to get the information of the person that redeemed it. And to redeem it, all you need to do is click follow. That's going to be the person that triggers it. So that's going to get all their information and put it here. After this here, you can pretty much make it anything that you want. Anything that you add here is at least going to have the ability to have the information from the target that's redeemed. So anything after here is good. You can add text. Like I said, this is the only thing that you actually have to have. And the rest of the things are just cosmetic things that you'll be adding to make your alert look and do things. Like I said, after that, we can do anything we want. But first, we need a few things in OBS. So let's just jump over to OBS and get ourselves set up so that we have things that we can do in OBS. The first thing we're going to do is in scenes. We're going to right click and we're going to add a new scene. So we're just going to click add and we're going to name this here follower alert. We want to make sure that we keep these things consistent so that we know what they are later on, and just click OK. This is just going to be a brand spanking new clean scene, clean source, so there's going to be nothing in here at all. There's three things that I want to add in here. So there's going to be a browser source, and I want 2 pieces of text at least. So we're going to give those an add. The first one, we're just going to right click, we're going to add, and we're going to go to browser source. In browser source, it's going to ask us to create a new one. We're going to name this one here user profile and click OK. Now we don't need to do anything in here. I'm going to make this here 500 by 500. Shut down source when not visible, refresh browser source when becomes active, and click OK. Like I said, we're just going to leave it like this. We can resize it and change it later on. Next, we want to add some text. So we're going to click in here and we're going to go down here and click on text GDI. We're going to name this one here username because that's what we want this here text initially to be. Oh. After that, just click OK. Now there's a few things in here you can do. You can select the font, you can change the fonts and colors. We're going to leave those stock for now, and we're just going to type in a placeholder. So we're going to type in just my name. We're going to click OK. And we're going to add the one more text here. We're going to right click, click add, go down here to GDI text again. We're going to name this one here follow and click OK. We're just going to type in followed here. Like I said, this is just going to be a placeholder. We're going to click OK, and we're just going to drag it around and place this here someplace. Once you have it moved around and sized a little bit the way you want it, we're going to add one more thing. We're just going to right click, go to add. We're going to go all the way down to color source. So it should be the 4th or 5th option here and says color source. We're just going to name this here dark panel and click OK. Now for this one here, we can just pick a color. This here is mostly just a placeholder so that I can see the text. And I'm going to leave it 1920 by 1080 and click OK. Now this here panel, I'm going to bring it all the way to the bottom and make sure that it's under everything that I already have. And then I'm going to size it so that it fits a little bit better around the box that I have here. So I'm going to size it like this here. I'm going to hold Alt to crop it. And we want it to be a little bit centered, so line it up the best you can. I have things off just a little bit here. And there, once you have it lined up, you can change the panel to any color you want. I'm actually going to change the panel to dark. I just changed it to a light because if I changed it to dark, I wouldn't be able to see it while I was moving it around. Now that I'm done moving it, I'm going to set this here color to dark. I'm going to change it to black. Select your color and click OK. Now in the dark panel, you can do a few other things. We can add a filter. Click on the plus. Click on the color correction. We're just going to leave it color correction. And this is just so you can change the opacity. So we're going to change the opacity to about a 7.0, which is just going to make it like a little bit darker of a color. You'll see the finished result here will actually look fairly good, and we're going to close it. But you can do that any colors that you want, and that's just how you change it so that it's more see-through. So when it pops up on your stream, it's not a big, dark, can't see-through panel. This is going to come up with a little bit of transparency with it, and I think it's a good effect to add. Now's a good time to double check to make sure it is going to be on the screen where you want it. You're going to be able to move this here around when you add it to your next scene, but just make sure you place it kind of in a general area where you'd like it to show up. And then once we're done, we'll move on to the next process. The last thing we want to do in here, the names are going to be different sizes, so you are going to have to worry about it changing sizes. So one of the things that you can do to prevent that is in here you can select on it. So on the username, you can right click, go to transform, and go to edit transforms. Now in the options it says bounding box type. In here we'll just go down to pick maximum size. I suggest doing this for all of your text things that have a possibility of changing size. Once that's done, it's going to change a little bit, so I should have done that first and then drag the box back over. And what it's going to do is it's going to prevent the name from making the box a different size. So now that it's set, that'll be permanently always that size. And you can do the same for all of them. You can do that for the follow. You can do that for the color correction. Just go to transform, edit transform, bounding box, maximum size only, click close. So if you're going to change the text later on, or if you have to worry about the text changing sizes due to name lengths and stuff like that, that'll just keep it in the same general area, so you don't have to worry about it breaking your alert by going way outside of it. So that's just a cool tip that I thought was really awesome, and that'll prevent your text from messing up. So once it's in place, it will be permanently set and you won't have to worry about it. Okay, that's all we really need to do in this here scene. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my recording scene, and to add it to this here scene, what we're going to do is click on add scene. And then in here, underneath the media source, there is a scene here. We're just going to go down to the list and select follow alert and click OK. Now that's going to add it to the page exactly where it's going to be. Again, this here will give you the option. You'll be able to move it around and change it later on. So if you don't have it placed exactly perfect, you will be able to move it here in the main scene, or you'll be able to go back and edit it later on. Anytime that you edit it in the original spot, anything that you do in here is going to move it on your main page. But for now, on your main page, it's going to show up and you're going to see it. That's perfect, so we'll know what we're working with. Everything's in place. Now all we're going to need to do is make this here text change and this here update the picture. To do this, we're going to have to jump back over to StreamerBot. Now all the things that we're going to want to do for the alert is going to go into the sub actions. So we already have an idea that we're going to want the name to change and we're going to want the profile picture to update. So to do those things, it's actually fairly easy. We're just going to give a right click here and go down to OBS. All we need to do is right click, go down to OBS, go down to sources, and in sources we're going to see this here set browser source URL. We're going to give that one there a click, and this here is going to ask us our scene in the drop down menu, so we can go in here and select follow alert. make sure that it's the same we just set up. And in sources, we'll be able to pick out any of the sources. This one here says user profile. It's the only browser source in here, so this is going to automatically just pick that one there. Now, for the URL, it actually tells us that you can use the variable in the sources. For example, this is the one we're going to need that shows in the example is the % target, capital user, capital profile, capital image, capital URL. And that's very important because it's case sensitive. So you may need to make sure that you type this in exactly as it is, capitals and all. Once that's typed in, you can just click OK. And again, make sure this here is correct. Make sure it matches this exactly. Every capital, it is case sensitive, and click OK. Now that we changed the browser source, the next thing that we need to change is the text. We want the username to update for whoever follows or whoever triggers the event. So again, we're going to right click in here, go down to OBS, go all the way down to sources, and this one here is going to be set GDI text. It's the same thing in here. There's going to be a drop down menu for scene. We're going to go down here, click follow alert, and the source is going to be follow. We want to actually change this here to username because this is going to be the username. That's the one we set to update. And in the text, this is going to be the same thing. In the example, it's going to show that target user. That's what we're going to need to type in here. So this is going to be very simple. Just % target user, capital U. Make sure that you put all the capitals in. And this is automatically going to update the user's name when it's typed in. So after that, just give it a click OK and double check this here again to make sure it's typed correct and has the capitals where you need to have them. Click OK. Next, I actually want to make it play a sound. Now, you don't need to have this here added to it. You don't need to have it play a sound, but that is something that I actually want to have in my alert. So to do that, we want to right click, go to core, and go down to sounds. In here, it's going to say play sound. Give it a click. Now we're going to need to find the track somewheres on the computer. So give it a click and go find a music track that you have. Once you find the sound, make sure that it's a short one too. Make sure that it's not, I wouldn't say any more than 10 seconds. We want to make sure that we on-check this here, finish playing before continue. We want the music to play as the alert is going and not after the alert. So we want to make sure that this here is on-checked. And again, make sure that your sound that you choose is a short one. Don't make it too long. Another thing that I want to do is move the volume down to about 60% because I don't want it to be too loud. In here, you can also test it just to make sure it's the right volume for you. After you give it a test and make sure that it's set okay for you, just give it a click OK. Now for me, I actually want to add a delay, but that's due to the sound that I have set up. I want the music to like start in and then show the alert and then finish out. So for me, I'm going to add a delay. I actually don't suggest this for every sound playing, but this is just something that's going to fit the sound that I have perfectly. So in here, I'm going to set a delay for about 3,500 and click OK. That's just going to give my music a little bit to ramp up before that it gets to where it's about to drop a beat, and then it's going to show the picture and stuff. So that's just going to match my music. This here is one that you can skip. Now that that's all done, you can actually just right click on it here and give it a test. You can test the trigger and it'll go through and set the profile picture up. It'll change. It'll let you know if you have it set up correctly. So give it a test.
New follower processing.
Okay, so we've seen the name change, we've seen the profile picture change, and we heard the music. Now we just need a way to show and hide it. So this is actually pretty simple over in the sub actions. We can just give a right click, go down to OBS, go to sources, and at the very bottom of sources, it's going to say set source visible state. Give that one there a click, and in here it's going to be some drop down menus. So we want to go through the drop down menu, pick follow alert. In the sources drop down menu, we want to just make sure that we select each one of these here. We're going to start with the profile user one because it's the OBS browser source set at the top. So we're just going to do it in the same order. So select user profile, click state visible, and click OK. Now this is super convenient because you can actually just duplicate this here so you don't have to keep making it, but just make sure that you have one for every source. Now there's only 3 sources in here that update, but we actually got to make sure that this here followed text disappears as well. So we have to make sure that we add that one in there manually at the end. So we're just going to right click this one here, duplicate sub action. We're going to double click on it. We're going to go down here and click the username. State visible, click OK. We're going to do the same thing again, right click it, duplicate sub action, double click on it, and for username, make sure that you pick follow, click OK. And the last thing that we need to do in here, we're going to duplicate it one more time. We're going to double click on it. And in this one here, we want to make sure that we pick the dark panel. We have to make that one there visible and non-visible too. We want to make sure it disappears and click OK. So when you're done, you should have 4 OBS sources that say visible state. Now this is only going to make them show, and we want them to show for a time period. So in here, we want to add another delay. We can just go down to core, click delay, it's the top option, and we'll click in, we're going to add 10,000 that's 10 seconds, and click OK. This is going to be 10 seconds that it's going to show, which is going to match for our music playing fairly well. And then after the delay, we want them to be hidden, because we obviously don't want them visible the whole entire time. And to do this is the same thing again. We can just duplicate these here. This makes it super easy. Just duplicate the sub action, and the one that you... Oh, I'll remove that. We can just duplicate each one of these in the order we want them hidden. So we can just right click on the top one, the OBS source visible. Make sure that it's the one for the user profile. Go down to duplicate. Just double click on it and actually just go down here where it says state and click hidden. Now there is another way to do it. You can click toggle, but I don't know how to add the delay to the toggle. So we're just going to do it this way for now and click OK when you're done. So that's the user profile. Next, we'll right click the username. And same thing, duplicate sub action, double click on it, click on hidden, click OK. Now we'll do the next one, the follow, duplicate sub action, double click on it, click hidden, click OK. Now the last one is the dark panel, right click, duplicate the sub action, double click on it, and click on hidden. Now all we need to do is just make sure that we have one visible and one hidden for each one. So I double check it here. I definitely see that we have user profile, username, follow, and dark panel. And again, in hidden, we have all 4 of those as well. The last thing I want to do at the very end is I want to add another delay. So in here, I'm going to go to core, and it's at the very top. Just click delay. And we just want to add 2 seconds here. So we're going to give it 2000 and click OK. Now that that's all set up again, you can go up here, right click it, and test trigger just to see if it works.
New follower processing.
Okay, and it disappeared. We're going to give it one more try. The reason why we gave it a little bit of a delay is so the music loads up a little bit better. We'll give it another go here. All right, there we go. That's all set up here. Now we can just check it here 1 second. We'll turn on the display here and we'll test it one more time. To test it, just click on it, right click, test trigger. I made it too transparent, so what I'm going to do is go back to the follower alerts and go back and edit the filter on my dark panel. So I'm going to go to the dark panel filters. I'm going to change the opacity up to, we're going to go to 90% and close it. Then we're just going to test it one more time just to make sure that it's dark enough but not too dark.
New follower processing.
And just remember, you can always go back here and edit the way that it's in here any way that you want. You can make it smaller, you can change it, you can move it around, change the colors and stuff like that. I'm just going to leave it as is because this is just a rough example, and I think that it looks perfectly fine. But there's lots of things you can do with it, and there's lots of other ways you can move it around. In here, it's a little bit hard to see when you're not running it or don't have a colored background. So the ways that you can change that around is you can change your color correction to a different color, or you can change your background to a color, like by just adding a scene. Go in here, you can add window capture or desktop capture. We're going to display capture just so that we can have an idea of what our text looks like. We're going to drag it out, and we can hide this here later on so that it doesn't show up at all. And when we trigger the things, it will only turn on and off the things that we have named in here. So if you accidentally leave this on, it will show up over top of all of the stuff that you have. Now this here will give you the ability to give it a test. And then you'll be able to move it.
New follower
First thing
processing.
it comes up. So I can see that. There. I think that looks good. And then it'll give me just a better idea of what I'm actually looking at on my main screen.
New follower processing.
Okay, and then once you have it the way that you like it, just remember to remove this here. I'd suggest removing it. You can just turn it off in case you need it later on. So if you're going to be making some more adjustments to it, you can leave it there. You can leave it there permanently and just click the hide. I'm actually just going to click on it and remove it. and go back to my main scene. Now I'll be able to test it from here, and it's the same thing when you test it here. You can place it some results on your screen. I like where that's put, but make sure you play around with it and put it where you actually like it. Make sure it's in a desirable place. But that's it for this one here. After that, you're done. That's the follow command. That's all you really need to do. And there is other things you can do. If you really want a subscriber command, you can just copy paste all of this here stuff and change the names in your main scene. Then when you go back into here, it's exactly the same thing. You can right click on this here, click it, duplicate it. It's gonna say copy. You wanna go in here and click on edit and just change the name to subscriber or subscribed and click OK. And it's just as easy as just changing the name and clicking OK. Now it's already set up with everything except for the trigger. So for the trigger though, we're gonna actually have to go in here, go down to Twitch, go all the way to the bottom where it says subscriptions and go down to subscriptions. Now this is going to say, it's going to ask you if it's Prime, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. I suggest leaving them all checked and click OK. Now when somebody subscribes, it's going to be enabled and in here we're just going to be able to right click the trigger and actually just delete it. Once we delete the trigger, and there you go, there's a subscriber one. We can actually give this one here a test too by testing the trigger. Once you see the triggers, yes, it did show up some information, but there is actually a few other things that you're going to need to check. You're going to have to go through, and even though it says set browser source and you have everything selected here, you are going to need to go through and select your scene and make sure that you go to subscriber and click OK for each one of these things. And it's just as easy as going in the one scene drop down to subscriber, click OK. And the same as in the visibility state. You can go in here, it's the scene. Just make sure that you go down to subscriber in each one of them, in both the in both the visible state and the hidden state. So it's just as easy as going through a checklist, double clicking, going through scene, subscriber, click OK, double click, scene, subscriber, click OK, and the same with the hidden state as well. Make sure that you do them all. And the last one here, down subscriber and click OK. So where we copy pasted it, we only actually just need to change the scene. We don't need to change the sources because we left them named all the same. Now you can go through in the source and actually change all the names if you feel like it, but I find this is an easy way to get two simple commands. And like again, you can just test it to make sure that it works.
New follower processing.
So it didn't work because I actually didn't add it to the scene. The last thing we need to do to make it work is we need to add it to the scene. I almost forgot. We need to go in here and click add. We need to go down and add the scene. We want to go down through the list and click the follow alert that we just made and click OK. And if you are already here at the end, we want to make sure that we go in here, click add again, add scene, and make sure that we add the subscriber scene as well. This will just make sure that both alerts are in here, even though you can make the one alert with just the one scene, and you can just make it update, and you can actually make it update the text by just adding in here another GDI text to make it subscriber and another GDI text in the other one to make it follower, so that those two texts can update in just one scene. But keeping a scene for each one will just allow you to have more flexibility if you want to have them in different places, if you want them in the center of your screen. But there you go. Your subscriber and your follower alert are both set up. I have it added here twice. And you'll be able to add any kind of pictures or any other animations with them at all. This here allows you to play sounds and movies or anything else that you want. So definitely open it up to your imagination and do whatever you think is actually awesome for it. There's lots of cool things that you can add. So definitely play with it a little bit. But that's it for this one here. This video has already been plenty long enough. If you think I forgot or left something out, definitely leave it in the comments below. And if you like or found the video helpful, hit the thumbs up and get subscribed for more content. Thanks for watching.